Hello everyone. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Vachani, to Business Standard Manthan.
Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here today. It's a real pleasure.
So we began this morning with a panel discussion on renewable energy where the theme was again India being the hub of manufacturing. So we carry on the theme of manufacturing in India. So we have a question mark there, a reality. What would you have to say on that? Do we need that question mark?
Well, honestly, when I opened the papers today and I saw the front page of Business Standard and I saw the question mark that you'd put, I was honestly very surprised because I thought by now the numbers speak for themselves. And we surely believe that the call given by our Honorable Prime Minister almost 10 years back that make in India, let's make India the hub, I think that question has been answered. And I'll tell you why, because if you look at the numbers, it's probably for the first time that out of the total consumption that we have of ICT products, the consumption is almost about $140 billion. Almost $110 billion worth of goods were made in the country. If you look at the export basket, ICT products, or electronics exports, is now the third largest category out of all the categories. The total exports of ICT products ending this year would be almost $40 billion. And we'll export as a country mobile phones worth almost $20 billion. So I think there is no doubt that we have come very, very far. And I think that question has been answered. And now the question that needs to be asked is that when do we deepen the manufacturing? What will happen to the value addition in all these products? When do we start designing these products? So I think these are the questions to ask. But as far as the Make in India program is concerned, Make in India 1.0, I would say, has been extremely successful. And I think some of the Indian champions have done exceedingly well as far as Make in India is concerned.
So you kind of answered that, when do we deepen manufacturing? So it's all about scale and capacity. When do we go global? And when do we actually becoming a hub like so many others in the world, manufacturing hub?
So, I'm often asked this question that, we are producing a large number of mobile phones. Almost 250 million mobile phones are produced in the country. Almost 170 million out of that are smartphones. So people ask me that, when are the components going to get manufactured? Is this mere assembly that is happening, right? And I tell them that I said, I wasn't around that time, but I'm sure the same question would have been asked when Maruti started manufacturing cars for the first time in India. And I'm sure a lot of people must have said that, ye to assembly ho raha hai, where is the, component ecosystem? But today, fast forward to maybe about, let's say, 40 years or so, now the auto component sector is a champion sector, right? They're exporting. Some of our companies, like Sanjay's companies, exporting their products all over the world. So I think my answer to that would be that we have to be patient. I'm very confident that we will eventually have a very strong and robust component ecosystem in the country. And to define that in terms of pure numbers, right? And we were just having a chat outside before the session. So if you look at India and mobile phones, right now we are sitting on a value addition of about 20%. Vietnam, after producing mobile phones as very large numbers, are also at around 25 to 30%. China itself is only about 50%, because let's appreciate that the main semiconductors for mobile phones, there are two companies, global companies, Qualcomm and MediaTek, right? And these chips are produced in China. So I know we have a long way to go, but now we have many plants coming up for displays. We at Dixon are also have announced our project for manufacturing display modules, eventually even setting up a display fab. We are getting into manufacturing of camera modules. We are getting into manufacturing ourselves of mechanicals. So we are very confident that in the next couple of years, we'll take the value addition from the current level of 20% to about 30 to 35%. And that's a big leap for the country and for the industry.
Mr. Vachani, Dixon is often referred to as the Foxconn of India. Do you like that description?
Well, we look forward, to the time where Taiwanese companies, tell their companies that you should be the Dixon of Taiwan, So I think that's what we're aspiring for. But of course, it's definitely a compliment because look, what they've achieved is phenomenal scale. They've achieved a phenomenal level of backward integration, a certain level of designing of the products, and they're really focused on digital transformation. So I think they've done a great job. And I think we have also proven ourselves, but of course, we still have a long way to go. And, like that famous SRK movie, where he said, "Picture abhi baki hai." So I think for us, lots to come. And we've just started. This journey's just begun, and lots has to happen.
You mentioned value add going up to 35%. What is the roadmap like? Can you just, briefly tell us about your plans?
So as I mentioned that by October, we should be starting our first production of the display modules. And the display is almost about 8 to 10% of the bill of material of a telephone. Following that, we will have a plant coming up for camera modules, as I mentioned to you. And again, depending on the product, that also is about 7 to 8%. So with just these two components, we will be able to go to value addition, as I mentioned, to about 30% straight away. And once we do the mechanicals in-house, and once we're looking at the display fab, of course, then the value addition goes much higher. And I think once that happens, we as a country will be truly Atmanirbhar because, a large part of the supply chain will be controlled within the country. And I think that will be a great achievement.
On the global map, where do you see yourself right now? You have a lot of contract pacts with big global companies, but to really go global, what will that take?
So I think before I answer that, let me tell you about the huge opportunity that exists in front of the Indian companies. We've all, seen what is happening in US in the last few days. And the kind of tariffs that have been imposed or likely to be imposed on our neighboring countries and some other countries. So I think that way, if I look at that, India, and I think we in the industry, are probably sitting on one of the largest opportunities of our lifetime. Because if you define that in numbers, you'll be surprised to know that US imports LED televisions worth about $10 billion. They import mobile phones worth almost $60 billion. IT hardware like laptops, desktops and servers of almost $80 billion. So if Indian companies were even to get a small part of this share, you would not be able to set up enough capacity in the next 5 years to service this kind of demand. So like I said, this is probably one of the largest opportunities of our lifetime for this industry. And it could be extremely disruptive. But of course, a lot of things have to happen. We need to ensure that we get over this issue of the reciprocal tariffs and quickly try and get into a free trade agreement, a limited FTA, wherein our products are covered. And I feel that I'm extremely confident that for products like IT hardware, like laptops and desktops, where even the Taiwanese companies are now slowly moving out and moving up the value chain into servers, there exists a very large opportunity for Indian companies, not only for manufacturing, but I would say for design and for components. Because let's appreciate that for products like laptops and desktops, the supply chain is not so complex like mobile phones. So these are some of the products that we can localize very easily, and these are low-hanging fruits.
Mr. Vachani, are you in touch with the government and giving them some kind of an advice on how they should go about it on the issue of reciprocal tax that you just mentioned? And do you think the government is on the right track, or should they deal with it a little differently?
Yeah, fortunately, we're very lucky that our honorable minister in the Ministry of Electronics and IT and the ministry itself is very, very proactive, right? They completely seized of the matter. Discussions have already started between the industry and the government. Our industry bodies, our associations are sharing a lot of feedback as to how to navigate this and how we can really, convert this into a big opportunity. So we have given our suggestions that we need to really try and hold off on the reciprocal tariffs for some time, till the time we have the free trade agreement, right? And also try and ensure that products like mobile phones are included in the FTA. As far as the laptops and IT products are concerned, it's already an IT1 item. So India also has zero duty, right, both on imports and exports. So there we have a straight away an advantage as compared to other countries.
In your message to shareholders recently, I think that was last year, you said Dixon is at the right place at the right time. What did you mean?
I've shared this in earlier forums also. I feel that, in the industry, this is a Y2K moment for us. What happened to the software industry and the opportunity that the software industry had, we are sitting on that kind of an opportunity. And, our Honorable Prime Minister has also said, yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai aur apna samay hai. And I also say that no power on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. And I'm very confident that this is our time. And the reasons are obvious, right? The whole world is looking at an alternative to our neighbor. And India is a natural alternative, right? We have the largest market for some of the products we manufacture. We have a large pool of labor. We can excel in design-led manufacturing. And we've shown that, our manpower can be the most productive in the world as compared to any country, given the right inputs and given the right environment.
Is Dixon looking at, getting into other areas as well? Like maybe semicon, maybe automobiles? Is that something that you've thought about?
So we've already announced our venture for display, right, as I mentioned to you. And this display module facility will first start with manufacturing displays for mobile phones, get into laptops, then televisions, and eventually, in fact, in a short period of time, we are seriously looking at getting into displays, automotive displays, because that we feel is going to be a very large market. And then finally, scale up to even, displays for defense and other requirements for high-end displays. So that's definitely on the roadmap, and that journey has already begun. And as I mentioned, that we are also looking at setting up a display fab ourselves, subject to the ISM2 guidelines being announced by the government.
So the fab, is there a timeline to it?
Well, you see, I cannot put a timeline to it unless there is some clarity, from the government as to when the ISM2. I mean, I know it's going to come out very soon, but as soon as it comes out, we will be firming up our plans and then probably announcing it.
And the location?
Well, we're still scouting for places, but I think the government is trying to promote a few places for potential fabs, for display fabs. And we will be looking at all those sites and other alternatives.
So what are the choices before you in terms of geography?
Well, I won't like to pin it down on one state or the other, but I would say that few states are emerging as very attractive destinations for manufacturing electronics and IT products. UP has done a tremendous job, and I think if you look at the last 3 years or 4 years, there's been a tremendous change in UP. And you'll be surprised to know that almost about 60% of mobile phones sold in the country are produced in UP. So obviously UP has done very well. Tamil Nadu has also come up very well as a destination. Our next plant for IT products comes up in Chennai. We are hopeful of inaugurating it in the month of May. So that's one of the sites we'll be looking at. And of course, Gujarat, which again is a very, very attractive destination, especially for large projects like display fabs.
Right now, you have 23 plants in India? Is
24, that's right.
24. Yeah. Okay, so where do you have the maximum number of plants? In any state, do you have more than one plant, or are they?
So UP is the state where we have the maximum number of units, and that's because all our mobile phones are manufactured here. I think the reason that we have chosen UP is because this business is still very, very labor intensive, and I think it's very easy, or actually much easier, to get trained manpower in UP. And also we have a component ecosystem which has evolved in the state of UP because of very large brands like Samsung having already established their facilities some time back. And of course, like I said, Tamil Nadu is also coming up as a great alternative for ICT manufacturing.
When we talk of job creation, what has your experience been in manufacturing? Is the job creation sufficient as per the projections that we hear of, or do you think there are challenges on the way and there could be more?
So on the side of job creation, I think the industry has done phenomenally well. So you would have read that almost 1 million new jobs, right, have been created in the mobile manufacturing space alone. And I think what is extremely satisfying that the ICT manufacturing is also bringing about a big social change, right? And I'll tell you why. If you look at our plants down south, in one of our plants in Tirupati, we have 70% female workforce. Right, and you would have seen the numbers recently that now almost 30% female workforce are already into the system, as compared to, let's say, 15% maybe 5 years back. So that's a big change that is happening, a positive change, and I think we want to build on this, and we are working very closely with state governments in UP to ensure that we create conditions that women can also be employed in the night shift, so that we have a higher participation of female workforce across the country rather than just a few states. And I'm happy to say that the states have responded very positively on this. We are also working with state governments to ensure that our workers, our operators, our family members are staying on the campus itself, right? What you see similar to China. So I think once that happens, you'll see the productivity of our workforce improve by leaps and bounds. But I think the question that you were trying to ask is that, are we satisfied with, let's say, the skill set of the people that come into the system? I think that's one area where a lot of work has to be done. The industry and the government really need to work together. And I see a similar situation, what happened to the banking industry when the private banks were coming in, that suddenly there was a large requirement of trained people. And I remember some of the institutions like NIT and a few banks came together and really trained a large pool of people. So I think a similar effort is required, and I think the government and the industry are working very closely on this. We at Dixon ourselves are setting up centers of excellence across our factories to ensure that we end up training a large pool of people in-house before they enter the shop floor.
PLI, you said that, you've gained, in fact, the industry has gained from the PLI scheme. But what after the PLI ends? What is the road ahead after that?
See, first, before we answer the question directly, you have to look at that. Why was the PLI scheme actually launched, right? What was the intention? And actually see that has it really fulfilled all those objectives. And to my mind, one of the biggest things as far as the PLI scheme was concerned, the intention of the government was to have the industry thinking of a larger scale. Because industry was used to thinking of creating capacities just catering to 5% of the domestic market. They wanted the industry to think of, setting up large factories, creating very large scale, because with scale, and I think Mr. Uday Kotak also talked about it. I was reading about it today morning. He talked about it, competitiveness, and I think scale is one of the most important issues as far as competitiveness is concerned. So I think PLI has checked the box, right? We have created or we've started producing 80,000 crores worth of incremental production as far as mobiles are concerned. Second objective was to create Indian champions, right? That has also happened with large companies, of course, like ours and many companies who got listed recently. The third was, of course, to create a component ecosystem, right? Now, I feel that a lot of these objectives have been met, but some of them are still work in progress, right? We still need to get large ecosystems into the country. We still need to work on, increasing our scale, and of course, we need to deepen the manufacturing. So I would say that we need one more round of PLI as far as the finished product is concerned. And it's great that the government is already talking about a PLI for components. And I think once we have these two things in place and we have the design ecosystem, Indian industry, I'm extremely confident, will be globally competitive and can compete with any nation or any company in the world.
On manufacturing on the whole, there is always this, discussion going on, manufacturing versus services. How do you look at it? Where should we really focus, manufacturing or services for a country like India?
Well, I remember having our team also having this discussion with Mr. Rajan recently. He happened to visit one of our plants because he's been very vocal about this particular subject. And of course, rightly, some of the other economists have also talked about it. So, I'm on the side of people who believe that we should focus on both, right? Why not? And because if you look at it in terms of numbers, the total allocation for PLI from the government of India was just 1,90,000 crores. Now, if you see rewind 5 years back, we used to have a scheme of MEIS where anybody exporting any product from the country used to get an incentive of 4 to 5%. There was nothing on incremental sales. Anybody, even if your turnover is coming down half by half, you will still get that 5% incentive, right? The government rightly abolished that scheme. And you know how much the government saved out of that? We saved 45,000 crores. And the total allocation of 1,90,000 crores for the 14 PLI schemes is minuscule, right? And we might not even end up spending that much. And the other side, you look at the increase in the GST collection because of the incremental production of 1 lakh crore. I would say that the PLI was a net earner for the government rather than a net outflow for the government. So what I'm trying to say that schemes like PLI do not actually cost the government those amounts of money that we're actually thinking of, right? So because of this, you could focus both on manufacturing and on services, right? And I'll quickly talk about this. That people ask me that what really changed in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years? Because there was a time when we were importing almost everything, and now we are exporting all these products. I say the biggest change that happened is the change in the mindset, right? And the change in the mindset happened when the leader talked about this thing that why can't we make in India? Why can't we make India the hub for manufacturing of the world, right? And this is what happens in organization and countries, that the call comes from the leader, and then you galvanize the energy of the entire system towards meeting that objective, right? So I think that kind of change is required. Now we need to start talking about designing in India and deepening the manufacturing. That's all it requires.
Mr. Vachani, can we take some questions from the audience?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Any question for Mr. Vachani? Anybody? Yes? Take a microphone.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, sir. I'm CA Jatin Kochar. Sir, every businessman thinks about the best and the worst that can happen in the market. So looking at current scenario that US has imposed, some reciprocal taxes we are talking about. I hope and I pray that things go well settled. But what if things doesn't get settled in next 3-6 months or 1 year? How do you look forward to it?
Well, you see, first of all, there have been various studies which have been published that the reciprocal tariffs will not really hurt India very much, right? Because India still is an economy which is dependent on domestic consumption. But at the same time, let's look at the bigger picture, right? Today, US doesn't look at India as a threat or as a competitor, right? It looks at India as an ally. And there are two large trading blocks emerging, right? There's, of course, the US and the China. And the US is definitely more likely to ally with India in terms of, starting a free trade agreement. And I think the two leaders have also talked about it in the joint declaration that was recently made during our Honorable Prime Minister's visit. So I'm very confident that this is going to happen. And as I mentioned, this is going to create the mother of all opportunities. But to your question, if it doesn't happen, if you see the numbers, China with the recent yesterday's tax, the tariffs which have been put now is at 20% base tax. And it goes up to 45%. India, in the worst case scenario, the mobile duty is only about 15%. So we're already lower than our neighbor. And I would say that a lot of the brands have already started looking at, making India as one of the base, as an alternate for catering to the world markets. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. Yes, your question?
Yes, sir. Your slogan, brand behind the brand, okay? So, can you please give 2-3 minutes brief how you are going to engage that in the world semiconductor race right now, which we are facing?
Sorry, can you repeat the last line?
Yeah. Right now, the semiconductor race world is going through. How you are going to tackle that, and how you are reflecting your brand behind the brand for, as we are going through Make in India and a lot of things. So please, thank you.
So I'll tell you the where this slogan is coming from, the brand behind the brands. Our philosophy is very, very clear that we are always going to be the brand behind the brand. We are not going to be competing with a customer, right? So I know a lot of companies, EMS companies globally, have also dabbled in or have started or invested in their own brand. But for us, it's kind of cast in stone that we will never compete with our partners. Also, if you look at the logic of it, right? Because EMS, or let's say electronic manufacturing as a service, is such a large opportunity, right? Globally, the market for outsourced electronics is almost $900 billion. And we are sitting at hardly an export of $40 billion. So still there's such a long way to go. There's still a long way to go as far as domestic manufacturing is concerned. I'll give you an example, IT hardware. India imports IT hardware, things like laptops and desktops and servers, worth almost $15 billion. And all these products could be easily manufactured in the country. So when you're sitting on such a large opportunity for manufacturing, for brands, why would you think of your own brand? Why would you think of getting into something that is not part of a DNA? So that's the answer to the first question. On the semiconductor race, yes, you're right that India went out for attracting investments into the semiconductor space at a time when the entire world was trying to do the same thing. But I think in that respect, if you look at it, I think we've done a great job because we have got some of the leading brands like Micron to come and invest in the country. We have now PSMC, which is a Taiwanese company, already investing with Tata. So I think it's a great start. As far as we are concerned, we are only looking at a display fab right now, which is again a very large investment. So it's not really, we're not really competing with anybody because, as I mentioned, there is no display fab in the country so far. So if we come in, hopefully we'll be one of the first ones.
Hi, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. You just talked about gender inclusivity as well as women workforce at the corporate sector. So how does the manufacturing firm can ensure gender inclusivity at the workplace?
So, as I already mentioned, there is a conscious focus now to ensure that they will get the right mix as far as gender diversity is concerned. And, to tell you something very interesting, there was a time at our factories also, and most of our factories, we had, almost maybe 95% male workforce, right? And then we started working towards this. And as I mentioned now in Tirupati factory, we reached a ratio of almost 65 to 70% women. And what we found that women on the line, on assembly lines, were much more productive. They were much more diligent. And even when we monitored the attrition rates, it was much lower with the female workforce. So that's got us to believe now that we need to replicate this model, across all factories, across all locations, right? And that's what we are doing now, as I mentioned, working with the state governments. And I think to answer your question, even as far as middle management is concerned, you would have seen from our LinkedIn listing site that we're getting a lot of the female workforce participation in the middle management and slowly in the senior management also.
I'll ask the last question. I know you have to go somewhere. You have an appointment. Apple. We can't not talk about Apple when you're here. What are your thoughts on getting into any kind of an agreement with Apple to manufacture their products in India?
Well, I won't honestly like to talk about a specific brand because obviously these things are quite confidential and I won't be able to discuss these issues. But I think let me try and touch the subject in a different way. That I think Apple, we all know, is an iconic brand, and what they're trying to do in India, I think, is something very special, right? They've already achieved, I think, a global production of almost about 15% now in India, which is very large. And I'm sure this number will go up. And it was extremely encouraging to see that now some of the vendors have now started exporting components, as we read today, from India, to all over the world. So I think we hope that Apple is going to do something what Maruti did, as I mentioned, right, in the early days, that try and create a very large, vendor base for the components that they source, not only for India but for global markets. And we hope that being one of the large part of this ecosystem, we hope to participate in this value chain sometime. It will be a privilege for us.
So Dixon will be part of the Apple ecosystem sometime soon.
No, I'm sure. I hope this. That's not to be the headline or anything of the event, but But of course, like I said, we don't want to name any particular company, but we aspire to be part of all large brands and their ecosystems.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so very much. It was quite a heartening discussion, that question mark needs to go. Okay, that's topic's gone, but question mark needs to go, definitely. Thank you so much. Also that, this is a Y2K moment for us. The way Y2K changed India's IT sector, propelled it to, altogether new heights. And the ask from the government, need one more round of PLI. Thank you so very much.